Alright, this is going to be a video on some of the beginning information for golems. Here I'm showing that the tool tips show up whenever you mouse over any of the buttons, and this is how you turn it off, and if those don't show up, this is pretty much where you go to turn them on. And this is going to give you information on what the button does, also give you information on the objects you're creating and things of that nature. So as you can see here, I turned it off, and so they don't show up anymore. If you click and hold the mouse when you drag, it moves the entire screen, basically the camera. If you right click and drag, it rotates the screen. And then I'm going to go over here and show these buttons control different options. Right there is the static button, and as you can see, it lets you select static items, which is not usually possible for you. Created a cube, and as you can see, without static selected, I can actually select that cube and I can move it around and manipulate it. So, and I won't be able to manipulate the static plane. Here I'm showing that you can, by left clicking and dragging, you can move the object around on the plane of movement that is allowed. It shows up by that white disc. And then I'm going to show you how when you snap in or use the axis. Right there is the axis. I've already showed snapping, which locks it into the specified grid that you can change the amount of which is in the options for environment. Axis only allows it to move along one set axis at a time. Created a sphere. I'm just going to kind of run through some of the ways to manipulate these objects. When you press Alt, these white spheres will appear, and that's how you resize the object by hand, basically. And if you have Snap selected, you actually lock each movement to the amount on the grid, which is very useful in making objects a certain size without having to enter into the materials menu. Here I'm showing the way to alter the planes to go along different axes by pressing Z pressing Z or X will change the plane. As you can see here, I'm moving it right now in different directions. When you press Shift while selecting an item, it allows you to rotate it, and the look of the plane changes. As you can see, there's 6 dots instead of 4, and this works the same way with the Z and the X, allowing you to rotate it along all 3 axes planes. So here I'm just kind of moving the objects around. I'm going to make a kind of structure to show off how the physics engine works. I'm going to stand up this rectangle. I'm also going to show you copy. So once you have an object selected, if you press C, and it will copy it, and will copy it in exactly the same location, so you won't actually see the object copied. You just have to make sure to move it. If you press C by accident, you really won't know that there's another object there unless you move it, so be sure to pay attention if you are pressing around Z. Now if you hold Control, you can select multiple things by clicking on them or by dragging a box, such as I just did. So I'm going to stand all of these up by rotating it using the Z. That way I can rotate it along the sphere. I'm going to use Z again, and I'm going to move the objects up, and that way they can be above the static plane. Now when you run the physics, anything that's static will react collision-wise with physics, but it won't be affected by gravity. As you can see here, all 5 items are affected by gravity and collision physics, but the static plane stays still and becomes your ground, so to speak. And so you can pick up objects by left clicking them, and you can drag them around and affect some of their physical interactions because of that. So I'm just kind of messing around with the ball to show you that. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show just a quick, not even really too much of an introduction, but just kind of showing off that these red buttons here are basically motors, things that you can control to make movements happen. Anything from this object, which is a piston, to hinges, ball joints, and motors. So I'm going to stand this cylinder upright, or the piston, and it's going to be put in between two of those rectangles, so that way I can force the rectangles to separate and come together. So right now I'm using the Alt key, and each object is affected differently by the Alt key. So you can actually move the piston to be longer and separate. That way you can position them properly to get a starting position or a max length changed while you're in the system. And in order to change some of these more details, you have to go enter into the materials menu, which is to select it and hit enter. So as you can see here, with the piston controlling the movement, the top block won't fall off. And as you saw, I made the bottom block longer, and it entered into the static plane. This causes it to also become static, basically fixing it to the static plane. And then obviously I deleted those objects, and we're just going to focus on controlling this piston. I would just entered in a input button object, and this immediately brings you to the wire mode view, and this is how you connect wires and make motors move. And right there you saw me enter the materials menu and basically tell the input what button that I need to press to make it move. I connected the wire, which powers the piston, and as you can see, as I keep pressing the key, it goes up, and when I let go, it goes down because of gravity. So this is kind of a quick intro into how things work, and hopefully more videos will come soon about more specific operations in Golems. Thank you very much.